Hello, today we're going to look at the linguistic and cognitive dimensions of literacy. Let's see here. We'll go to view and present. All right, as you write into the day, I want you to consider reflecting upon the way you interact with the text. I want you to think about leisure text as well as professional text, so consider how you interact with a book like Girl on a Train versus how you interact with a book, perhaps a biology textbook or the Rosenblatt article you're getting ready to read later in this module. So how do you interact with texts? You consider videos as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be a traditional book. Think of poems, think of any kind of text that you interact with. How do you interact with text in different ways? You can pause the video here to complete your write to the day. Spend about 5 to 10 minutes writing in your writer's notebook or daybook. Once you've finished your write to the day, we're going to have a digital read aloud today. And we've linked a YouTube video of Martin's Big Words in your module for this week. So you can pause the video here and listen to Martin's Big Words. As you listen to the text, enjoy the illustrations and the story, and think about how the characters might influence you in your daily life. Who can you learn from? Is there a character that you can identify with and think about why? So just kind of enjoy and think through the text as you listen to Martin's Big Words. You can pause the video here, and the link, like I said, to your YouTube video is in your module for this week. So pause this video and go ahead and watch Martin's Big Words. We're going to go ahead and talk about the linguistic dimension. And as we think through this dimension, you are going to want to consider linguistic as the pragmatic part of text. So here we consider the reader and writer as code breaker and code maker. So it's constructing and deconstructing texts. It's the symbols, it's the structure of text, how the text is put together. And some phrases that you will hear, some terms you'll hear when we're speaking of linguistics, could be pragmatics, genre, text structure, semantics, syntax, morphology, orthography or spelling, and graphophonemics. And all of these components relate to the linguistic dimension. So even if you've never heard of these items characterized as the linguistic dimension, I'm certain that you are familiar with these features. So we're not going to spend a huge amount of time with each of these components. We're just reviewing what's involved in the linguistic dimension. All right, to think about vocabulary and maybe trying to use parts of the linguistic dimension as we work through this first article by Linda Kukin. There's one in the link, is in your module for this week. You can print the article out, or you can just pull it up online and use it there. But I'd like for you to select one of the terms below, orthography, morphology, or syntax, and use Kukin's article to get a more in-depth understanding of one of these words. And to practice with this, you are going to do a foursquare, which was a concept that Stahl and Nagy came up with to really develop more comprehensive understanding of a term. This is a really good strategy to use in science content areas, for example. So you are going to choose a word. Let's say you choose orthography. You select orthography. You're going to put it here under the target word or concept square. You will put the definition of orthography in your own words here, and there's quite a bit of information in the article on orthography, and of course you can use other items as well. You can list examples of the concept here and then non-examples in the lower right quadrant. So as you work through this activity, this linguistic activity, you can go ahead and pause the video. We're going to look at the cognitive dimension of literacy now, and if we think of the linguistic dimension as being focused on the symbols and structure of text, then we can think of the cognitive dimension as being one that focuses on the person interacting with the text. And a text doesn't necessarily have to be a book. It could be a poem, it could be viewing a video, or reading through an infographic. So it's just interacting with a type of text. And what we read, of course, affects how we read. I'm going to go back again to that example of reading Girl on a Train versus reading that biology textbook. You are going to read those two books in a very different way based on your purpose for reading. You also bring different background knowledge or schema to whatever you interact with. And then your strategies, your understanding and awareness of strategies also impacts the cognitive dimension and metacognition. So if you realize that your meaning begins to break down, can you employ fix-it strategies to help construct that meaning again? That's all related to the cognitive dimension. You can pull up your transactional theory article now by Rosenblatt. Again, you can print this out or you can read it online, but the link to the article is in your module for this week. And as you read through this article, we're going to complete a double entry journal. There's also a link to a couple examples of a double entry journal, what they look like if you're not as familiar with this type of reader response. But this is a type of reader response that is really related to that cognitive dimension. It very nicely aligns with the reader and the text. So with a double entry journal, and like I said, you can look at the examples. There's links to some examples in your module for this week, but I also put just a quick example over here on the right hand side of what it can look like. You can take your daybook or your writer's notebook and fold the page in half, and on the left hand side have the idea from the text. Make sure you include your page number, and you'll extract maybe a paragraph or a line or a concept. You'll put it in this left hand column. And then on the right-hand side of your paper, you can put your thoughts and reactions to this concept that comes directly from the article. And I want you to think how this form of reader response helps you navigate through the text. So you can go ahead and pause the video here to work through this cognitive dimension activity. And again, this is a great one to use with your students. Once you are finished working through the module, do not forget to post a reader response, so a brief synthesis of what you worked through, the articles, what you thought, a reflection and a discussion question, no later than Monday at midnight. Thank you.